Hello, everybody. Welcome back to CCSN podcast episode 2. Today, we're just going to be doing a little breakdown of the MLB trade deadline. We have a lot to talk about today. I'm Chris Casella here with my partner and friend Chase Carlos. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. We got a lot to discuss. A lot to discuss. A lot of things went down. A lot of things didn't go down. And what do you want to start off with? What's your favorite move of the deadline?
My favorite move of the deadline. Um, I'd have to say. I mean, it would be so easy to say the Soto move because they didn't give up anything. I feel like we got to start talking about that right off the bat. That that package was almost next to nothing compared to what I thought it was going to be. Like the Padres absolutely stole Soto, but now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I think Hader was my favorite move of the deadline because and it's the same team there, and I think they had. I mean, it's a clear answer. The Padres had the best or the best trade deadline you could possibly have. And Josh Hader, he's not washed. I don't care what his ERA says. Closer's ERA is a very wishy-washy stat because they're only in there for one inning a game. Like your ERA spikes and it drops very dramatically throughout the year. Josh Hader, he's still that guy. He's still striking out batters at a high rate. He's still got the same stuff. His velocities at a consistent level. His breaking, his his spin on his pitch is fine. I think that is going to be a great move. I think that the Brewers are going to regret it. They've got Devin Williams there. He's just blown two saves in a row for them as taking over that closer spot. You had an elite closer, and you're a team that's competing right now, well, trying to at least, and you just let him walk. And I think the
I
Padres got
absolutely
him for nothing.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's weird because you always hear people say it, especially one situation I can just think of off the bat is the Clay Holmes situation. It's really hard to name somebody your closer. That's the biggest responsibility in baseball. I mean, you can come in, you can save the game, or you blow the game in one inning. It's a huge responsibility to have on your shoulders. And I think it was just such a dumb move for the Brewers. I mean, yeah, Hader's had probably a rough couple of 4, 5 bad outings. Yeah, but look at the past 5 years. He's been without a doubt the best closer in baseball since Mariano Rivera retired. And you're going to trade him for a package of, four players. You cut one of them. You cut Lamet, who was a top 3 in Cy Young candidate 3 years ago. It was during the Mickey Mouse season, but again, he still showed a lot of potential. And you just cut him, which I thought was really strange. Devin Williams obviously looks great. But as you said, he's blown 2 saves. It's really hard for a team to just name a closer, especially with only 1 day's notice, 2 days notice. And I think the Padres they're here to win it. I mean, they're making the right moves. You got Juan Soto, and the name that people are not talking about enough is Josh Bell. They
Yeah.
got him in a package like with Juan Soto, like it was just throwing him in there. I think Josh Bell should have absolutely been an all-star this year. If he wasn't on the Nationals, he definitely would have been representing somebody, but they look great. They came out that first game. Brandon Jerry hit a grand slam. So all their key acquisitions have looked great so far. Soto got on base twice. That's what he does. But I still think that the Dodgers and Padres are going to be neck and neck in the playoffs. I think that's going to be one of the best I hope we do get that as a playoff series. I mean, two teams who hate each other, two fan bases who hate each other. Dodgers fans live rent free in Padres fans' heads. So let's see if they can turn the narrative around this postseason. One team that I just no idea what they're doing on the
The
Chicago
Cubs,
Cubs.
absolutely, dude.
They are I think they're in the running now for worst general management in the league. You have two guys who had all-star years, especially a guy like Ian Happ who had a breakout all-star year, and probably this is the highest point of his career where you get the most for his value. But no, you
Absolutely.
guys are gonna stay in second to last place in your division. You guys are gonna just ride it out with two free agents as all-stars, people you could have traded. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What's your take on that?
Well, now it comes down to you got to extend them because you don't trade them. You can't just let them walk for nothing. This is the iteration of the team. They're looking to build around these guys. That's the direction they're saying that they're going. It looks like. I mean, these are their franchise cornerstones that they're looking to build around, and I don't get it, man. You're not contending with this team. They're way outside of your timeline. you're already going into a rebuild, except for these two pieces. Like, I don't know what the Cubs are doing. I think you're correct on saying they're in the running for having the worst general manager in baseball. All this rumors going up to the deadline. I think they let it go on way too long. Contreras' value was at its peak in the offseason. I mean, maybe even a little bit after the season started while he was on fire, but you couldn't wait to trade him till like right now, especially because of the chemistry with the pitchers. His value just went down, and it just kept going down and down and down as it came up to his time to get a contract extension, and you get less games with him. So they waited that out too long. It's the same thing with Jan Happ, and I just don't understand what they're doing. Maybe we'll see some kind of like big splash that they're planning to try and win with this team. They've got some prospects, I guess, that they could make a move with, but I don't see it. I mean, I don't know what they could possibly be planning here. They're a very far way away from being a contender in anything, a contender for the playoffs even.
I absolutely agree with you there. And especially with a guy like Wilson Contreras, I look at it like this. I would have brought him in as the general manager, said, listen, we're going to trade you. We want you back next season. There's absolutely no doubt in my, because the rumors going around was the asking price is way too high. And you could have definitely got definitely top 10, at least one top 10 prospect for him. And that would have been great. I mean, especially for a guy that you could resign for free in the off season. And Ian Happ's just another guy. I just don't understand his value. He could have been valuable for a lot of teams around the league. He could play left field, center field, right field. He has a great bat, and they're just going to they're going to test their luck. And I think Ian Happ is gone in free agency. I can definitely see Contreras staying, but it just makes no sense to me. They're definitely one of my top losers this trade deadline. I got a few winners and losers that I'd like to talk about.
Go ahead.
My winners, I got the Padres, I got the Phillies, I got the Yankees, I got the Astros, I got the Mariners, I have the Twins, I have the Cardinals, the Reds, and the Athletics. And people right now might be hearing that and saying, "Oh, you got the Reds and the
I love the
Athletics up there.
Reds
That
being
sounds
in
a little weird."
I love the Reds.
I think the Reds, they're doing what any team should do if they're looking to rebuild.
Mhm.
They got more than 5 prospects. They looked great. I mean, this is what they're supposed to do. Yeah, they are going to suck. They are going to suck bad for the next 2 years, but they're going to have the best farm system in baseball in the next 2 years. I mean, they got the top, what is it? The top 3 prospects from the Mariners, or was it the top
Two of the top
1 and 3?
5. Two of the
Two of the
top
top
5.
5.
Yeah.
And then they got a couple other good prospects. They gave Brandon Jury, who's having a very good year, way better than any other year he's ever had. They got a great shortstop prospect from the San Diego Padres for him, and that was a fantastic move by them. So yeah, I'm really in on them. I really like what the Athletics did too. I mean, they got a great trade package. They have 2 guys who I can see being 2 key pieces in their rotation in the future, and Debbie Garcia and what was his name?
Waldichuk, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are 2 guys, and Yankees fans, I mean, they knew they both really good. Debbie Garcia is only 22 years old. He's been in the league. He showed he has stuff, and it's a great place to go to. You have no pressure. I think they're going to move in the next year or 2. So, I mean, if I'm an Athletics fan, I'm excited. It's the most excited you're going to get all season, but it looks great on them. The Cardinals, they got their needs. They got Jordan Montgomery. They got Jose Quintana. Especially, there are 2 teams down. The wild card spot is going to be the Phillies or the Cardinals. The Giants are 6 games back. They just got swept by the Dodgers. They look like complete shit. I mean, the Giants are another team, one of my biggest losers at the deadline. They should have traded their whole team. But you know what? They said, we're going to stand still, and we're not going to even try to upgrade our team. We're just going to stay where we are. So they made no sense to me. My losers, and tell me how you think about this. I got the Mets, the Nationals, the Red Sox, the Guardians, the Orioles, the Cubs, and the Brewers. I think the Brewers aren't getting enough hate right now. I mean, they were first in the division, and you're not going to make any moves. The only move you're going to make is you're going to trade the best closer in baseball. They just lost 4 in a row. The Cardinals just won. Did I say they lost 4 in a row? The Cardinals won 4 in a row. They're tied for the division already. And one of my predictions is I think the Cardinals are going to end up winning that division. I don't think the Brewers have anything on offense. I mean, when Andrew McCutchen's one of your top 3 players on offense in 2022, that's saying something. So I don't know. They just don't look like a winning team. And same with the Guardians. They're one game out of the wild card spot, and you pick up nothing. You pick up nothing. You don't pick up any relief pitching. You don't pick up an extra bat in the lineup. So it just makes really no sense to me for those two teams who look like they should be wanting to win, but management said, and we're just going to ride it out. So who are your winners? Who are your losers? What do you like? What do you don't like?
Backtracking a little bit, I really liked the Houston Astros getting Trey Mancini. I think that was a perfect trade for them. He's just a guy that is very, very solid wherever he goes. Like, he's just so consistent and exactly what that team needs to take over from Yoli Gurriel, who's been absolutely disgusting this season. And I think that that's a huge move that's gonna show up in the playoffs. He is a player that I have a very high respect for. He can play multiple positions, but more importantly, he plays a position that they need him to play. So that's one of the moves that I really really liked. But a team that I think is getting a lot of hate that I don't understand it that much is the Mets. And I'm not a huge Mets fan personally, but they didn't do much. They got Vogelbach, which was kind of gets overshadowed because it was a few days before. It's a smaller move. He's been productive for them. It's kind of a lot what they needed, just a big bat in that lineup, an extra big bat. They've got a lot of guys that get on base. You need somebody to drive in those runs. And Vogelbach, I think he's got the power definitely to do that. And they've got a pretty easy schedule. So I think he'll come around at the end of the season with some pretty good numbers. They didn't make all these big moves while you're expecting them to, but I also don't know that this is their only year that they can contend. They have the prospects in their farm, and they're waiting for one of these big names to come available again. They couldn't make the move for Soto. They were in the talks, but not really seriously. I think they want Ohtani. I think they're really going to make every push possible for Shohei Ohtani, and it really feels like a match made in heaven. Steve Cohen, like he called already about Ohtani. I think that will be the big story of the offseason is Shohei Ohtani making his way to the Mets. And that should scare pretty much every team in the NL, really, but in the NL East especially I should say. But so yeah, those are they definitely didn't win the trade deadline, but they're a fairly neutral team for me. On top of that, like you said, the Cardinals, I really like their progression that they made, but more than them, I like what the Phillies did. The Phillies made so many moves in the past few days. They completely revamped half of their roster, basically. They got rid of all the holes in the lineup. There were a lot of holes in that lineup that you can't have as a playoff team, and had really been what was the detriment to them in a lot of these games. On top of that, they added a fourth starter in Noah Syndergaard, who I don't think is this great pitcher anymore. He's a huge name, but he's not this all-time pitcher, but they got him for nothing. So you're getting an extra starter, which is something that they really needed because they had Bailey Falter and Nick Nelson starting games. It's just you can't really have that. So you've got a playoff rotation now with Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, Noah Syndergaard, Kyle Gibson, and Zach Eflin coming back. They have one of the better pens in the league recently, and they added David Roberts into that, who's going to be their closer now. And on top of that, they fixed probably the biggest hole on their team, which is center field, which is where they had Odubel Herrera playing, who is maybe one of, if not the worst players in baseball, and Mickey Moniak, who might be second worst. So I really like what the Phillies did, and they're already a team in the hunt right now, and they're going to get two big acquisitions really back soon. They already got Gene Segura back last night, who's quietly been for the past better part of a decade one of the best second basemen in baseball, and he continues to be one of the better second basemen in baseball. And then you have Bryce Harper coming back, who is literally a top 5 player in baseball. So I really like what the Phillies are doing, and they're going to be making a lot of noise come the end of the season.
I absolutely agree with you on that, but I'm just going to touch on the Astros and Mets before I give my opinion on the Phillies. One thing that I really like about the Astros, and first of all, I think all the Astros hate has to be done. I mean, I think a lot of things been proven. Every team cheats, so everybody has to get over that. But anyway,
on top of that,
thing with the Astros,
most of the players on the Astros that cheated aren't on the team anymore. The players with the highest rate of cheating aren't on the team, and those guys don't get as much hate on the other teams. People just like to hate the Astros, and I get it, but it's kind of time to move on.
It's over now. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the point. But talking about the Astros, they did exactly what a winning team does. Exactly what you said with the Phillies. They filled their holes. They needed a first baseman, they got one. They needed a catcher, they got one. They needed a relief pitcher, they got one. And I still think the Astros beat the Yankees in a 7-game series. I mean, yeah, the Yankees added starting pitching. They added outfield depth. Andrew Benintendi's terrible so far, but it's a small sample size on the Yankees. Obviously, it's a lot to get used to from Kansas City to playing left field for the New York Yankees. But I just think the Astros have their number this year. I mean, they have a better starting rotation on paper. Justin Verlander looks like the best version of himself ever. So that's saying something. His ERA when he won MVP was 2.30, and his ERA now is down to 1.81, I think it is, after last
Yeah,
night. I
it's
mean,
something like that.
he looks ridiculous right now, and I think the Astros are going to steamroll through the American League. I think they're going to beat the Yankees in 6 games. They always shut them down on offense, and the Yankees have to prove it to me. I feel like they haven't proved it to me yet. Severino, he's already on the 60-day L. Their starting rotation is already, I don't know. I don't know if I can trust Nestor Cortez. I'm just really high on the Astros. And speaking about the Mets, I do agree with you. They're getting a little more hate than they should have. But one thing that all Mets fans could definitely say is that they struck out on this deadline is relief pitching. They
Oh,
absolutely
absolutely.
needed a couple left-handed relief pitchers, and they just didn't do it. And I think that's what's gonna cost them in the playoffs. I mean, you have this big five. You have Max Scherzer, Jacob DeGrom, Tajon Walker, Chris Bassett. You have everybody you need. But the one thing you needed was a couple relief pitchers to just say, we have the best pitching in baseball. And now you can. I mean, what if Max Scherzer has a bad playoff game? What if he has to be pulled in the 5th inning? Mets fans are going to start worrying. David Peterson's not this guy anymore, or this big prospect anymore. He's David Peterson. That's who he's going to be. You put him in a playoff game, I don't know if you can rely on him. So there's a lot of things going on. I mean, I like their offense. I like some of their acquisitions, but they definitely should have picked up some relief pitching. But going on to the Philadelphia Phillies, I think healthy that this lineup is right up there with the San Diego Padres. It's right up there with the LA Dodgers, especially after adding Brandon Marsh, who he already looked better than Mickey Moniak yesterday and Odubel Herrera out there. I'm really excited. I think Philadelphia needs a red October, and I think they're gonna get it. Am I saying they're gonna beat the Padres or the Dodgers? No, but I think they're gonna get there. I think with that rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Syndergaard, and either Eflin or Gibson, and you can end up throwing Eflin or Gibson as your long man, which can be really good, especially for a bullpen that's looked fantastic over the past 2 months. But I don't know. I'm really excited, and I'm just really excited for the Philadelphia and that fan base. And going over to the AL East instead of the NL East, my biggest loser, I mentioned my losers, but my biggest losers at the deadline are the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have to realize that they are done. When you are fighting for last place with the Baltimore Orioles in your division, you were done. I don't care if you were over 500. You have a 30-year-old starting shortstop who is great, but he is 30 years old. You have JD Martinez, who's not himself anymore. It was time to trade these guys, but no, it was time to. It was terrible. It was a terrible deadline. I would give them a D- to F grade if I'm being quite honest with you. And how do you feel about the Red Sox? I just think it was the worst
Yeah, I'm right with you.
worst team.
I mean, we talked about on our last episode. They probably should
Them and
be
the
looking to.
Cubs. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
they should be looking to trade Shane Bieber. Not even a mention of that. I think look at what Luis Castillo got traded for. Luis Castillo got traded for pretty much an entire farm, and I love him. He's great. Shane Bieber's better. Shane Bieber's trade value is much higher than Luis Castillo's, and they just didn't even think about it. I really think that they had an opportunity. Like you said, they are done. They are not competing right now.
The
They're not even.
Guardians.
I'm sorry. Well, I thought that's what I was talking about, but
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. But the Red Sox as well. The Red Sox are also done. Nathan Eovaldi is the pitcher that I was thinking about for a second. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're good. You're good.
But yeah, they really should have been looking to blow it up. Xander Bogaerts, as you said, huge contract, like huge contract for no reason.
4 more years,
And he's a
and
shortstop.
he's over
Like,
30.
they do not age well. He's gonna have to move. I don't know if you want a 34-year-old Xander Bogaerts playing your shortstop. So look, I don't really like what they were doing. They're gonna have to pay this iteration of their roster because they're going in now. Like they had their chance to blow it up, and if they're going to do it in the off season, I don't know because they still have to work out these contracts, and I don't like it. I think they're in a very tough division, and it doesn't look good for their future.
And I think that's the thing with fan bases like Boston or San Francisco, not fan bases, excuse me, like general management with Boston or San Francisco. They always think like that they should be competing, if you know what I mean. Look at the Reds. I mean, obviously they're in a much worse situation than the Boston Red Sox, but they traded all of their good players because they said, you know what, we're going to focus on the future more than right now. Obviously, the Reds were terrible. They started that in the offseason. But the Red Sox, it was their time to start that now. You had probably 5 guys on that roster that you could have shipped out and you could have revamped your whole farm system, especially the Red Sox, whose farm system isn't looking that great. So I think next year, especially, it's going to really hit them, the Red Sox, and they're going to realize, holy, we should have made the moves last year because I don't think someone's going to want to pay Xander Bogaerts $20 million a year after 31 years old, and they're going to end up having to do what the Padres did with Eric Hosmer. I mean, and that's another thing that the Red Sox did. They picked up Eric Hosmer. Padres are paying most of his contract. So, I mean, that's just my example with that. I feel like that's what's going to end up happening with a guy like Bogarts, not to the same extreme because he's still hitting the ball really good, but shortstop at 31 years old is not a guy you're giving up the whole farm system for. They could have got a lot for him at this deadline. So they're just one of my biggest losers.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, Story as well. That's not really working out much. So
yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of what's going on in Boston right now. It's a tough division. I really think that the Orioles are going to start taking over, and they might be bottom feeders for a few years here. And that's not going to be fun for Boston fans. They're not used to that. But every team's got to go through it.
So one of my favorite teams after the deadline are the Seattle Mariners. I mean, great pitching rotation now. I think Luis Castillo really makes that team look like they can go toe-to-toe with the New York Yankees because down in the playoffs, number one thing is obviously your pitching rotation. And when you got a pitching rotation of Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, Chris Flexen, Robbie Ray, and either Marco Gonzalez or George Kirby, that looks great. But my biggest thing with the Mariners is if the Mariners want to be top dogs, they have to get the Robbie Ray that they paid for because Robbie Ray is not getting paid to be the 3rd or 4th best pitcher in that rotation. He is getting paid to be their ace, their Cy Young. He signed a 5-year, $115 million deal with the Mariners, guaranteed. And all of his numbers are down from last season. I mean, his Cy Young year, his ERA was 2.84. His ERA this year is 4.11. His WHIP is down terribly. His FIP is down terribly. And if you want to make noise, Robbie Ray has to show up. No one's going to be taking that contract. I mean, the Mariners right now are probably sweating this out a little bit. I mean, because after the first 2 months of the season, you always got that excuse going around. You know, it's early. It's early. It's not early anymore. Your ERA should not be 4.11. I mean, he's giving up a ton of home runs. He looks terrible. And one thing that is jumped, he's walking a lot more guys this year. His number one thing last year was he threw strikes. And he has to find that again because the Mariners without Robbie Ray, I mean, I think the Castillo deal was great, but I think that deal relies a lot on Robbie Ray's production. Because if you're going in with this pitching rotation, I mean, that's what you're relying on.
Yeah, and they've had a couple prospects. First one that comes to mind is Kalenic, who if they could just get anything out of these bats, they've got the rotation that's like probably I keep in my mind their rotation is one of the top 3 in the league easily, and so one of those teams is always so scary in the playoffs. Having a team that can really shut down any offense at any time, it's scary to play against. So that's not a team that I think you can count out of any game. And they're able to find these arms all the time that are just very efficient for them. So I like what they've got going on there. I hold them in high regard, especially their development staff. So I think they'll get Robbie Ray right. I really do think that, but he has not looked good this year. His stuff it's off. I mean, his velocity's ticked down a bit as well. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I kind of wonder if there's some kind of injury with Robbie Wright, because I'm not. It doesn't make much sense to me. But maybe he's just one of those guys that has one of those crazy years randomly, like a Jake Arrieta type, and just gets paid and nothing happens after that. So it really could go either way. But I like what they got right now.
Well, I'm hoping for the best for the Mariners fans out there, and hopefully he'll turn it around. But another team that I really liked at the deadline were the Minnesota Twins, and I think they're not really getting talked about enough. I mean, they added a starter, and they added two really important bullpen pieces in Jorge Lopez, which they gave up a good amount for, but
Yeah.
I think he can be really important for them down the deadline. They got Michael Fulmer from the Tigers, who's been excellent this year. And they added Tyler May from the Reds. So I think that rotation looks really good. I like their offense, but I mean, I think the Twins are just going to Twins again. I don't think they're really going to make any deep run, but I think they're going to be a fun team to watch come playoff time. But that's really all from them. I'm not a huge Twins believer. I'm sorry, Minnesota. But yeah, what is your early World Series prediction? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what's your early post-deadline prediction?
I think this kills me. I don't want to say the Mets, man.
You got to say from your heart.
Dude, it feels like a Subway Series this year. It really does. I'm so high on the Yankees this year. I love what they did. They gave up a lot of prospects that I really liked, and I think that it's gonna pay off. But it's so hard to say that a Subway Series is gonna happen in the World Series. Like, that just feels like it's not gonna happen. I'll give it Subway Series. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. I'll stand on it.
And who wins and in how many games?
Yankees in 5.
All right, I like that. So I'm going a little rematch. I think it's going to be Houston versus LA. I think LA is going to beat the Padres. I like that. I love both rotations. And I think the Astros get the better of them again. I think they've been really close, especially after the cheating scandal. They lost last year, a World Series that they probably shouldn't have lost. I mean,
yeah.
Braves players got hot at the right time. I mean, Eddie Rosario looked like God reincarnated, and now he's hitting under the Mendoza line, and Jorge Soler hasn't hit a home run in like 3 months now. So they got lucky at the right time. So that's my prediction. I got the Astros winning in 6, and we'll see what's happened. Our next prediction will probably be before the playoffs, but I'm really excited. I think the race is going to be great. I can't wait for the pennant races, and I can't wait for October.
Yeah. I mean, that's when baseball starts to really heat up. It's kind of getting a little boring right now. I mean, the trade deadline was a nice little pick me up, but it's a 162 game season. It's a grind, man.
It's a grind.
I'm excited. A lot of huge stuff coming up.
We got a lot of baseball left, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is just trade deadline breakdown. So that's all we got today. Thanks for joining us for the CCSN podcast episode 2. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Again, I'm Chris here with my friend and business partner, Chase Carlos. And Chase, got anything to say?
No, that's all it from me.
All right. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at CCSN Sports and Instagram at CCSN_sports. Thank you again, guys. Can't wait to see you next week.